among your policy BHC, Board Employee Communication, which states pretty much that communication between staff and board is through the superintendent. So this is not a forum for staff to get input. It's for the community. And I also have to say that I'm totally confident that whatever decision we make, the staff is professional enough and capable enough and enthusiastic enough to make that decision come true in a way that enhances our school system. So with that, I will open the public comment section and ask you to come to either microphone and to make sure that our recorder gets your name. Mr. Rubine.
I'm Dean Rubine from Lee, New Hampshire. I'm going to start the meeting by talking about a totally different subject. Tuition. And I read the tuition framework that went out to the schools, to the other districts. I haven't decided if it's a good deal for us, but I'm very certain that it's a good deal for Newmarket. And there's been a lot in the press that's seems to be talking Newmarket out of it, and so I wanted to push a little in the other direction here. This is a real deal. We have real space in our high school for you guys over in Newmarket, and we're welcoming your kids, and we know you've exhausted a lot of other alternatives and haven't found anything, and here we are, a great high school just up the road. We're giving you a really good price, $14,500 in FY16. I had to go back to 6 years to find a time where you guys paid less to educate a high school student. And if you adjust for inflation, you have to go back 8 years before you've paid as little to educate a high school student. And now you're getting an Oyster River education. There's been some argument that, well, we're not counting transportation costs. Well, when you go back and look at the state's numbers, they don't include the transportation costs either, so it's a fair comparison. You really are getting 8 years off your price. There was some speculation that the savings would evaporate over time, but no, the deal is for basically a constant discount to our cost, which is going to work out to a pretty big discount. I mean, our cost will probably be about $17,000 by then, and you're getting the seat for $14,500, so that's a good 15%, I'd say. And so the final argument is you guys might actually want to build a high school, and I would say, well, while you're building a high school, send your kids to ours. And so that does point to the one complaint I might make about the deal is we wouldn't review it for 10 years, and I would suggest that we review it much more often, say like every 2 years.
Thank you. Now I'm going to be totally unfair because I should have done this up front, is to ask how many people are planning to speak before I decide on how much time to give you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. I'm going to limit the input to half an hour, so I counted about 10 people. That's 3 minutes a person. So please step up to the mic.
Probably want to add the switching back and forth between microphones to be fair, so people don't stand in one line longer than the other.
Good idea. And it would be nice if you did come up to the microphone so that you don't have to wait for you to scramble out of your seats. So
Good evening. I'm Susan O'Byrne, Durham resident and a third grade teacher at Mohammed.
I'm sorry, but I'm going back to the policy. And I know that you're a resident as well, but the policy is about. I'm sorry. Thank you. If this was a deliberative session and we're talking about taxpayer money and the taxes, I would say everybody that's a resident should be able to speak. In this case, you're a staff member and there is a protocol for communication. If you would like a copy of the policy, it's on the web and it's been here for years.
Madam Chair, I guess I would disagree with you. The policy reads the primary line of communication
Right.
between the board and school staff is through the superintendent, but it doesn't say the exclusive line. And I think that's a distinction here that we need to respect. The primary line should be through the superintendent, but I think if staff is here wanting to speak, they're not excluded by this policy.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Penny, there's a chain of command at the school, and the communication channel is the superintendent for the staff. And if we don't respect that, then we undermine his authority.
Can I speak as a resident then?
Are you resigning as a staff member? You can't have it both ways.
Could I make a motion to overrule the decision of the chair, so to allow residents who have any interest in speaking to speak? Do we have a motion to overrule? I mean, I'd like to move to overrule.
And I'd like to-
It's been moved and seconded to overrule the chair.
And I'll
And
discuss
you
it. In answer to you, Ann, a chain of command, I don't think we're dealing with a military organization here. I think we're trying to achieve what's best for the students in our district. I think our teachers have a voice in this, our students have a voice in it, and as the policy is written, it does not say exclusive, so I do not think we're violating policy. I think the input that we get will help us make the best informed decision we could make. I think it's very important that we hear that.
Well, I guess I'll just say that a resident has filed a lawsuit against me and the board for allegedly violating the right to know law. So I'm not ready to start tinkering with our policies as well. Megan?
I had just read the policy, because I haven't read it for some time, so I agree with the Madam Chair's position. However, I think that people in the audience are interested and would like to hear input from the teaching staff. We have received several letters. One suggestion is that if a non-staff member could perhaps read that letter in lieu of individual staff members speaking, that might be a reasonable way to, I agree, we must follow our policies. I mean, basically that's Dr. Morris's job, is to implement what we legislate as policy. So I feel that we should follow our policy as best as possible. I think we could spend a great amount of time debating whether or not this is inclusive or not inclusive, but I think the spirit of this policy is pretty clear in my mind, that it goes through communication between staff needs to go to the superintendent before coming to us. So I recommend that we uphold the policy, but try to allow staff to find somebody who is not a member of Voice River Cooperative School District, perhaps to read their letter. So this is discussion, so I'm just adding to our discussion.
We want to hear what the teachers have to say. If they're residents of the town, why should we
Excuse me, there's a motion on the table, and it's discussion by the school board. Al?
I think the letter is important for the public to see, and unfortunately, as you guys probably have found out, it's extraordinarily difficult to find things on our website. Yes, we are working on resolving that. But, I mean, as a courtesy to the people who come here and really want to add a thoughtful discussion on what's a really important decision, I think it's important that the staff be allowed to express their opinion, because it really does add a boots on the ground input to this thing. And these are people that are professionals in elementary education, and their thoughts matter.
Any further discussion?
It's the policy not only for the staff, but also for the board members. It'd be similar to these.
Can't hear you.
As a board member, I feel that it wouldn't be right for me to stand up as a member of the public at this point, and sort of wearing both shoes. So I think that putting myself in that position as a staff member, I think that's, I'd like to hear what the staff has to say as a resident, perhaps, or as a parent, but as a staff member, I think we've got to go by policy the same way I have to go by policy.
And?
Mrs. O'Byrne, would you qualify if this is a letter from Mrs. O'Byrne, would you qualify if this is a letter from the staff that you are going to read?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. That's not her personal thoughts.
Well, in fact, they are, because I signed the letter, and I had a part in writing it.
Further discussion? Hearing none, please have a show of hands, please. All in favor? 3 in favor, all in opposition. Motion passed.
Can I just make an observation here? The,
Do you have the report, please? Your name?
my name is Peter Miller from Durham. And it seems to me that you're discriminating against residents of the town based upon the fact that they're members of the union. And that's illegal. So if they weren't members of the union, but they were residents of the town, they could talk. And that's expressly prohibited by the collective bargaining law. So I hope that you drop the ban on employees speaking and not discriminate against them because we want them to have a say.
I don't think that there is an intent of discrimination, but I think the policies were written in effort to keep the system having a process, an internal process. We hire the superintendent, we hire administration, and together the staff and the administration and superintendent should certainly have much dialogue on any subject. The board comes to the board. But to have the split in public of the board or the superintendent, if he recommends something, I don't know that he will, and then the staff say, oh, no, we don't want to do that. I think he's totally disruptive for the system.
My name is Kira. We have 21 Cherry Lane in Maverick, and a couple of people in the audience suggested that maybe as a resident and students in the school that I might be able to read the letter. I'll just speak as a resident.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you all? I don't want to violate your rules.
I think we all have the letter.
You don't
No, I
have
don't
to.
think you do. Thank you for the offer. I guess I'd like to speak as a resident. if that's possible.
To Megan's point, and I'd like to support what Megan voiced, and I'd like to maybe make a motion that we make an exception tonight if it is what the board has declared as this policy doesn't let teachers speak, that we let a community person speak instead of the teacher and read their letter. I think that's a compromise. I think the letter should be heard by everyone in the audience. I think we as a board should hear the letter, and I think that's a compromise. So I make that motion.
Do we have a second? Second by Ed. Discussion? Hearing none. Could we have a show of hands? And?
Opposition.
Opposition. 6 in the affirmative, 1 in opposition. Motion carries. So who's the designated person?
Are we set?
For you to give it to a community
She
member?
can read the letter.
Okay.
Or
Could I say a word as a resident or no? Because I'm an employee. Is that,
Why don't you let her read it?
Okay.
I think that's what the motion was for a non-teacher.
Okay. I haven't seen this letter. I know nothing about it, so I'm just reading it, just so you know. To the members of the Oyster River School Board and Superintendent Morse, we, the Moheramet staff, believe that an elementary school by definition means at least a K through 4 configuration. Prior to 1994, Oyster River had a long history of K-5 elementary schools, a 6 to 8 middle school, and a 9 to 12 high school. It was after several years of high enrollment and limited space that our current K-4, 5-8, 9-12 model was adopted. According to the 21st Century Skills Model, we need to encourage and develop the following in our students: cooperation, collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and creativity. These are the skills students need most in order to be successful in college and a career. These skills take time to develop in our students. We strongly believe that the students benefit from a K-4 framework for the following reasons. Bullet point number 1, building trust between families and schools happens over time. 5 years in the same building leads to a stronger community and a deeper connection for children, staff, and families. This trust allows for honest and open communication to support the social, emotional, and academic needs of all children. Number 2, community encompasses a longer span of ages. 5 years in one school gives the children stability. 5 years in one school creates a strong community. 5 years in one school allows for deeper friendships to develop. 5 years promotes confidence in children due to fewer transitions. 5 years spent in our school community creates more successful children. Within our K-4 community, children in the 3rd and 4th grade serve as role models to the younger children. Opportunities such as book buddies, bus line helpers, playground-friendly helpers, kindergarten helpers, technology mentors, and recycling leaders are a few of the ways our older students give back during their final 2 years at the elementary level. These experiences empower our students and prepare them for middle school. Currently, our students are at their elementary school for 5 years, middle school for 4 years, and high school for 4 years. These transitions are developmentally appropriate and allow students to maintain relationships with the staff over longer periods of time. Students have more of a sense of belonging. They feel nurtured and safe in an environment where most staff members know who they are as learners. The proposed 3-year K-2 program and then a 2-year 3-4 program interrupts the elementary experience for our students and their families. Within the K-4 model, knowledge is gained about a student at every grade level and is communicated easily, which helps staff and parents establish a plan of action for successive years for each student. Changing schools after only 2 or 3 years would compromise these efforts. For 24 years, students have benefited from UNH interns working in our classrooms. According to Dr. Tom Schramm, director of the UNH Educator Preparation Programs, the shift to a K-2, 3-4 model will most likely affect the placement of UNH elementary education interns in our schools. From his perspective, given the requirements and expectations of the year-long internship, it would constrain the intern's experience to be in a school with such limited grade level span. This limitation may also adversely impact their markability as teachers following the internship. We risk losing elementary education interns. Our present education model has served the ORCSD for over 50 years. Our community has always understood and valued the importance of communication, consistency, and continuity. We pride ourselves on our ability to develop strong relationships among students, their families, and our staff. Together, we work to develop lifelong learners and productive members of our community and the world. This happens over time in settings where children have daily contact with a caring, committed staff. We believe this is best achieved by maintaining our current K-4 model. And there's lots of signatures, and I would certainly add mine, so I don't need to say anything because I agree with the letter completely. I'm done. My name is Brooke Keeler, K-E-E-L-E-R, Madbury. Thank you.
My name is David Eddy from Madbury. I agree with a lot of the comments that have already been made, K-4. And I think one of the other things, I know myself as a parent, I have 3 kids, and they're all fairly close in age. And one of the things it's going to do is it's going to split up siblings. You're going to have siblings who are going to have a brother or sister who's in K-2, and then the other child is going to be in 3 to 4 to 5. And I'm interested for the parents that are doing things like after-school activities and bringing kids to karate and all those other things, how they're going to accomplish that when now they're not only picking up at one school, they're picking up at 2 and coordinating that. It's difficult. And I don't know if that's been already thought about with times. Like, I just can't imagine how it would work. And the bigger thing, though, is the whole reason why we're having this conversation is because of the fact that there's a problem with the school enrollments. And you got surprised this year in that you had more kids than what you thought were coming. But now, we're going to tuition high school students. We're going to lock in for 10 years. And what if these projections that you have already are wrong? They've already been wrong once. And if that happens, now you've got a high school where you've got 9 to 1,000 students, and you really are going to put that high school in a real difficult position if more and more families do come to Oyster River to educate their children.
Is this thing on? Yep. My name is Sue Chase. I am a resident of Lee, and my son attends first grade in Lee, and I am in support of and reading a letter from the Massway Elementary School staff. To the members of the Oyster River School Board and Superintendent Morse, the Massway staff strongly believes that the elementary students of our district will be best supported by a K-4 configuration for the following reasons. The K-4 school setting allows for more efficient curriculum planning. The progression of concepts and skills students learn is planned vertically. Teachers and support staff gather valuable information about students during successive years. This better informs our instruction and support for our students. Students are more successful in schools where there is open communication between staff and parents. The K-4 configuration allows for more time to build stronger relationships between home and school. Parent involvement is an important part of a student's success. With all of their elementary-age children placed in one setting, parents feel less stress and are more likely to volunteer and attend school-sponsored events. Our students and staff benefit from collaborating with UNH and the placement of elementary education full-year interns in our classrooms. UNH has indicated that K-2, 3-4 configurations would mean that our district would most likely lose the placement of elementary education interns within our schools. Students achieve more academically with fewer transitions. In a K-4 school, they have time to feel a greater sense of community, build stronger relationships, and develop pride in their school. The 3rd and 4th graders at Massway are role models for the younger students. They serve as reading buddies, classroom helpers, recycling crew, bus helpers, and student leadership council members. This is a very important part of school community building and the development of student leaders. Oyster River School District is held in high regard in preparing students for success. Student needs have always been considered a priority. Our present and future students deserve the same consideration. We urge you to do what is best for the children of Oyster River School District. Sincerely, Massway Elementary School staff.
Anybody else? Hi, my name's Jody Walker, and I live in Madbury. 4 children, 3 that are currently in Moherman. I guess I want to just say quickly, I'm a little bit surprised and confused as why we're still having this conversation about the K through 2 and the 3-4. I want to say I have these kids, so I can't attend every listening session, but I attended one of them. I believe we had 3 this past spring. The one that I was at was crystal clear to me as an audience member. The concept of K through 2 and 3-4 was tossed out the door. Nobody in the audience was interested, and the emphasis of that meeting that I attended was about how can we best use your time and as a community and the superintendent's time to research and look and investigate how best to draw a line or manage enrollment in a way that would allow these communities of schools, which we are very proud of, our children are very happy in, and clearly the staff at both schools are very happy with. But how can we come up with a way to best allow that to continue? So I'm dismayed that this is even still happening. And I have to say, I'm going to put it out there, I think it was really inappropriate that my kindergartner almost was impacted at the last minute at what I felt as a personal attempt to try to put my kindergartner in a bad position to take the first step in implementing this K2, 3, 4, which did not happen, thankfully, but I felt like it was an attempt to first step in that direction. And I wasn't very happy with that took place, and I'm glad it didn't happen, but I hope that you start listening to this audience and reflect back on the comments from those listening sessions. I have seen no reaction, no communication about all of the excellent information that came from that listening session, so I wonder how you all can be looking at it now and using that for your thought process. One of the things that I brought up at that listening session that I'm aware of, I hear a lot of talk about bus times, increasing all of our kids' bus times. That really stinks. But combined with that bus time is something that you all would be concerned about, and that's money. What goes into those bus tanks, fuel tanks, is a lot of gas. 10 minutes more for every kid means a lot more gas, and that's a cost that won't go away. Has anyone even looked at that? I know I brought that up and asked somebody to investigate it at that night, but silence. And I just want to say that we moved to this community because of these elementary educations. Elementary is the core and the foundation of what we build good people upon. And I wanted my kids to be a part of this community and these community educations, and that's why we're here. And I know a lot of other people in the same position, and I hope you listen to us, the people that will be growing these kids at home, and we're entrusting those staff to grow them at the schools. And I just want to say I feel that it's the ugly system of things that's not really listening to what we're all saying. And we need to really hear our community, not just a few people.
Hi, I'm Jocelyn O'Quinn from Durham. Boy, I'm glad I'm not on that side of the table tonight. First of all, thanks so much for doing this. I appreciate the opportunity as a parent to be able to speak on behalf of my children. I think that's really important that we are able to be involved. First of all, I just want to say that I'm a little scattered because I thought I'd see the presentation first and then get to comment, so this might not be in the perfect order here. But first of all, I'm confident that whatever configuration you choose, my kids will be educated well, they will be happy, and they will be fine. I'm confident because of our quality of teachers and because I feel like we have leadership here, and our kids are going to be okay. I'm very confident in that. The other thing I want to point out is change is coming. I know people here don't want change, but as a Moherman parent, I can tell you that the situation in Moherman is not ideal. We are overcrowded. The playground is crowded. The lunchrooms are crowded. There's kids who get special ed services right now, including my daughter, in a room that has no windows, or she did last year. I'm not sure of that for this year. But, we need to take a deep breath and understand that if we continue as we're going, it does impact the students and their learning at Moherman. So I just want to make that point. I don't know what the ideal solution is, but I think it's important that we don't act like there's one best solution, because I do think that everything will be fine regardless. My daughter was in the preschool program, the PEP program, and it moved 2 or 3 times in 3 years. And we're talking about a girl with an IEP who was 3, 4, and 5, and every year she was fine. You know, she moved classrooms because of the quality of our teachers, and because they were able to make it a happy setting. She rolled with the punches. And I can't think of a more vulnerable population in our district than kids with IEPs in preschool. So having lived through this as a parent, I can reassure other parents if change is coming, and it is for some of us, your kids will be fine. And I just want to make that message tonight, because I really feel the anxiety here. And then I just want to bring up, you know, in my dream world, my dream solution that probably won't happen, we'd have one elementary school. We would bring all the kids together, because I think there is an issue of, we want to promote community, but right now there's 2 separate communities, and I feel that. I feel that when we come to these forums. There are people here who don't want their kids in Mast Way, or kids who don't want their, parents who don't want their kids at Moharrimet. These are both great schools. And I feel like to really bring our resources together, it would be ideal to have all of our kids together. And in fact, I think it would ease the transition in 5th grade. And having heard some of the talks about tuitioning, you know, unfortunately, I think there are people in our community who don't want outsiders, who don't want kids from Newmarket in their district, and they clearly stated that. Well, I think there are parents in Durham who don't want their kids in school in Lee, and I think it's crazy. And I think if we really want to build a community, we should focus on bringing all our kids together. And I think the best way to do that would be, I'm almost done, not to take the tuition kids, but to bring all of our kids into the high school, the middle school, and then have one elementary school. So that's it. But thank you. I'm sure everything's going to be fine.
Christovat's Lee. I'm going to follow Jocelyn because I agree with absolutely everything she says. And I just wanted to say that I'm a nobody that's sitting in the audience and actually in favor of the K through 2, 3 through 4, 5, whatever you want to call it, option, for a variety of reasons, which I'm not going to reiterate. If you want to read them, go to the Oyster River Community Facebook page. I wrote them all there today. But what I do want to say, using my 3 minutes tonight, is that I'm okay with either option. I'm okay with redistricting, which isn't my favorite because I'm afraid that we'll have to redraw the lines again and again and again, and this problem will only resurface itself. And I'm okay with the K through 2, 3 through 4/5 model too. But what I'm not okay with is us having another one of these meetings. I'm not okay with us not making a decision. I've been in your seat. I understand what it is. I understand how difficult it is to make this decision, but I believe we have an administration that's in favor of making the decision and moving forward, which we haven't had for the last 3 years I can speak to. But I urge you just to make a decision, because I know that it's a difficult decision to make, but the longer we wait, the more anxiety builds, the more problems we're going to have, and the more people will be saying, are my kids going to go to Massway? Are they going to go to Moharrimet? Are they going to go somewhere else? Please just make a decision and let us move on, because the anxiety is what's killing us. And if we can just get past that, we'll see that we'll be all right.
Hi there. My name is Anita Mather. I attended Oyster River Schools from kindergarten through 12th grade. I graduated with the class of 1992. I just recently moved back to Durham, so I'm now a Durham resident again after spending 16 years in California. Went to UC Berkeley, got a PhD in sociology with emphasis in education and stratification and family. So my husband is also a 1991 Oyster River graduate. So, and we have a 2-year-old, Maya, and we're looking forward to her attending the same elementary school or schools that I did. So I guess I just wanted to comment, I would like to know more about the 2 options. I have my memories from my elementary ORES days, and I remember there being a lot of rivalry between ORES and Mastway. And I was kind of surprised when I moved into the faculty development area and found out that my daughter might be in Mastway, which I did not attend. I was surprised to find myself being kind of upset about that. And like, why should I be upset about that? Mastway is a perfectly great elementary school. But the feeling was there all the same. So I kind of, I looked at, in the option, it said, under the benefits is that, you won't have this dichotomy between Mastway and what's now Moheramet. And I felt that that's actually would be a good thing. And also, I think it would just make the transition to elementary, to the middle school, a lot easier, having already known all of your classmates from kindergarten. It would just ease some of the anxiety that I remember having when I entered middle school, all these new people who were from Mastway, so who then became great friends. And it would just be wonderful to have, to have had all of those classmates from day one, rather than later on. And I think it would have been good, as a parent, also to have that greater support network of all the parents who have children in the same grade level. So I don't know which option is better. I mean, I know there are drawbacks and benefits to each one, but I would just encourage to really do some research on the K through 2, 3 through 5 option, because I think there are some real benefits that could be had there, academics aside. So I guess that's all. I just wanted to let you know I'm also back in town, and it's good to be here. And I also, I run the Oyster River Alumni Association, which I started in 2005. And I'm not speaking on behalf of the Alumni Association also, I wanted to make that clear. But we do various things throughout the year of raising funds for scholarships and grants for students, and you can check us out at oralumni.org. So it's good to be in town. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Pribble, and I'm a Durham resident. We have a daughter who is currently in the middle school and a son who will enter the Oyster River School District for kindergarten. And I think I am one of the few people who is very interested in finding out more about the K-2-3-5 program. I really believe that 5th grade students would benefit from moving out of the middle school. And giving them an extra year at the elementary school level, as the elementary teachers even said, building that extra year of confidence so that they can move into middle school, which is already, the middle school teachers do a great job, but it's a really tense time for kids. And I think that having an extra year in elementary school would be good for them. I also am very interested in helping with the dichotomy of schools. Both schools, as so many people have come up here and said, they're both great. That's why people are here. They really feel connected to their school. But it does create some tension and anxiety between the two schools, and that is propagated into the middle school years. So I'm not asking you to solve that problem, but I am very interested in how the K-2-3-5 could help build community in our school district. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Edward Ricker. I live on 115 Dame Road, Durham, New Hampshire. I'm nervous talking in public, so bear with me. My kids are out of the school district now. God, I'm older than dirt, but all 3 of them graduated from Oyster River. All 3 of them graduated from UNH. All 3 of them have master's degrees or will by the end of the year. I thank the Oyster River School District. I thank the teachers, but people ask me what makes Oyster River successful, because they always badmouth it because we're pretty good. And what it is this right here, is a participation of parents. Parents won't put ceilings on the goals of their children. This is what makes it good. I swear to God, I'm positive. All right, I'm not even going to talk about this stuff. But bear with me. I'm going down a road and you're saying, where's this guy going? But just bear with me a little while. Okay, it's only 3 minutes. I timed it. 1963 was 50 years ago. Martin Luther King made his famous speech in Washington. One of the primetime TV shows was The Flintstones. The Oscar went to Kill a Mockingbird, and Marlon Brando Rose more social conscious with The Ugly American. Sonny Liston was heavyweight champ, while Pete Rose was Rookie of the Year in baseball. The zip code for Postal Service was implemented, and the Beach Boys had the #1 hit, Surfing USA. 10% of the country had color TV, and McDonald's hamburgers started to go nationwide. On a local sad note, we lost the submarine Thresher, which was stationed out of Portsmouth. John Fitzgerald Kennedy was president. He stated, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." President Kennedy made youth believe that they could and should make a difference and get involved with service to local communities as well as the world. Example, the Peace Corps. JFK inspired the imagination of youth of this nation like no other person has done since. President Kennedy asked the Marine Corps to have troops to be able to walk 50 miles. What happened was many citizens and youth of this country took part, and it was very well received. I am asking the school board to endorse that idea that perhaps the youth of Oyster River should consider walking 50 miles. You may ask me why the school board, and I will reply, why not? It is history, it has social consciousness and awareness, and only benefit anyone involved in it. What happens here? JFK wanted the youth to be physically fit and made that challenge the same year fast food took off. 50 years later, guess who won? I am hoping someone watching this meeting at home will pick up on this idea. I'd just like to say, if JFK saw the 6 o'clock news, he'd be disgusted. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you.
Shut the lights out when you're done.
You're the last one, Sarah, to have our results.
Sarah Farwell Lee. I've been thinking about this a lot, and for a long time, as many of you, because we've been thinking about it. It's been up in our faces since spring, then we thought it went away. I keep coming back to the same things, okay? One, a K-4 model, the current model that we have, makes developmental sense when it comes to children. I have a psychology background with elementary ed, master's, and I just, what you're taught in all of those courses is that you start from the center of the child and you work out. So when you develop curriculum, you start in the kindergarten with discussing the child and their family. And then you move in the next grade to discussing, a larger community. I know in 3rd grade, my daughter right now is studying the towns of Lee and Durham. And then they move on into 4th grade into studying the state of New Hampshire, and then the nation, and then you get where I'm going. Developmentally, this model allows us to do that better. It's not that the other model doesn't allow it. It's not that it makes it worse. It's just that this lets us do it better. I also go back to richness, okay? I know from my discussions with school board members, from Dr. Morse, that really a lot of what this switch is about providing a more uniform education for the elementary students of Oyster River. To that I say, Oyster River is about more than uniform education. We are about a richness of education and a depth of education and a depth of experience. I don't want a cookie cutter education for my kids. I want a rock star education for my kids. Will they be fine? Will my kids still rally? You bet. My kids will rally. They will be fine. But I don't want fine. I want great. All right? I also say, as a very active member of our PTO, that a big concern of mine is parental involvement when you make this K2, 3-4, eventually 3-5 split. And I would say that at the elementary level, it is incredibly appropriate, first of all, and desired by your children High school, you could be there or not, whatever. But I would say that for myself, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I chose to be so I could be as involved in my kids' educations and their schools and supporting these incredible educators as I can. And I would say that I cannot consider doing what I do now in a K2, 3-4 model. And Mrs. Barth tells me I'm done. Thank you.
Lines. There was nothing said yet tonight about the bus lines, and I'd like to make one comment about that since my neighborhood is involved.
1 minute.
1 minute. My name is Carrie Klein in Durham, and I have 3 children at Moharmet. So my neighborhood is in the line that could be redrawn. So my comment along that is, I would hope that if you do choose to do the bus routes, you would grandfather those of us who have children in Moharmet or Massway there already. I have a child who will be in 4th grade next year. He's finally comfortable in the school, and I love seeing his confidence grow and be able to stay there. I can't imagine pulling the children out while they're in school and saying, you, because you're on the side of the line, have to go to the other school, say goodbye to your friends, say goodbye to all of the teachers that you know, the hallways that are comfortable to you, and start over. My husband and I, we bought our house, we decided to stay there. That's what we want to do forever, and that's what we did that's how I grew up, that's how my husband grew up, we wanted that for our children, and that's the decision we made. So I'm hoping that you'll consider that if that is the route you go.
Thank you.
30 seconds.
Did you get the name?
Could-
Okay.
Could I have 30 seconds?
No, we gave half an hour. I have given 45 minutes, and I think. Oh, come on. And there will be. There is a lot of public input at the end, so let. He has another opportunity at the end of the meeting after hearing the superintendent's presentation. Oh, yeah. 10 seconds, the second one.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of October 7th.
Great. Motion by Kenny. Is there a second? Al? You're not sitting together? Discussion, deletions, additions? Hearing none, could I have show of hands, please? Kevin in the affirmative. Ryan in the affirmative. Motion carries. Oh, you abstained since you weren't here at that time. Yes. Announcement and commendations from the district. Seeing none? We'll move. We are at announcement and commendations from the district, but I didn't see anybody jump up.
Madam Chair, could I just take a second to acknowledge our transportation staff who in the last week of October are going to be collecting food for the needy. And since we have so many parents in the room, you may see a sign in the side of your children's bus looking for canned goods. If you can find it in your heart to give that to your bus driver, we'll make sure it ends up in a good place for Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Does the board have any? Kenny?
I just wanted to acknowledge everyone who came tonight and everyone who has sent letters. To operate in a board in a vacuum is very difficult, and I think to get public input is very important, and would like to thank all the time and thought people have put into this process.
Thank you. Anybody else? Then we move right ahead. There is no curriculum tonight? No. Superintendent, please.
Just a couple of quick reports, Madam Chair. In terms of enrollment, for the third year, we've seen pretty level enrollment, and that is in your packet. We are holding our own. The issue in enrollment that probably I should point out is we have steady enrollment, and it kind of feeds into the discussion tonight. The problem with our enrollment isn't that our numbers are zooming up, it's that our numbers are de-equalized on each side of the district. So it is related to our conversation this evening, but the good news is we have steady enrollment for the third year in a row.
Thank you. You're not doing a tuition update?
Yep, I'll do that really quickly too. We have put out an offer to both Barrington and Newmarket. Both school systems are bringing the offer to their school boards. My understanding is that tomorrow night, Newmarket will discuss it at the board level, and on the 29th, Barrington will discuss it at the board level. We have asked them to respond to our board by November 1st as to whether they're seriously in the conversation. My belief is that both school systems still are. The Deerfield school system has signed a long-term agreement with Concord, so they're no longer in consideration. The framework that was alluded to in public comment is the framework that will be finessed to the place where it could become a contract. The board will be making a decision on November 20th, and then all of you get to participate in that decision in March, where you can vote yes or no to the board's recommendation. So the tuition issue is coming to a close relatively fast. The board's been talking off and on through 3 different superintendents, and it's coming to closure. So I think that's the important news for this evening, Madam Chair.
And nothing from Sue?
No, she's hiding.
Do you have something?
Hello, I'm Ryan Kerrigan. I'm a senior at Oyster River. I'm substituting for Peter Zwart today. This is a student council report. We just finished up our Spirit Week. It went well without a hitch. We're looking to fundraise for some organizations that help lighten the burdens of the government shutdown that is putting on some people. I know there was a big news article about some killed in action Army Rangers and Marines that don't have the proper funeral benefits, and so we're looking to fundraise for them, something like that. We don't have organizations yet, but we have a few in mind. We also are looking to have a school board tuitioning forum for students in the high school, because there's been a lot of talk about it, and high schoolers aren't really as educated on the topic as we want to be. So we want to have some questions that we could just ask the school board and get some clarification on.
Good idea. Thank you. Anything else?
That's it.
Now, we get to
Thanks.
the fun part.
So I want to echo the board's comments, Board Member Kenny, Rodner, and the rest of the board. I know, truly appreciate the audience this evening. Clearly, the instant messenger going into your phones and into your mailbox, your email boxes has worked, because this is a fantastic audience. So the issue that we face is a pretty serious one. And it really is about the enrollment between the 2 elementary schools that has become very disparate. It is about equity, and it's about safety. So one of the real issues we face is that both school systems currently, as we're sitting here, have 115 student difference, and that's impacting how we do business. So just to give you a sense of where enrollment is heading, I just reported that the enrollment is stable this year for the 3rd year in a row. But if you looked at the kindergarten numbers and compared them to the high school graduating seniors, you would see a great disparity. The primary grades right now, say K1 and 2, are significantly smaller than the intermediate grades, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8, and that is going to carry through over time. So if the board doesn't address the issue of the disparity, it will only become greater over time. Hard for me not to comment on Kristen Butt's comment because I agree with her wholeheartedly. This is an issue that the board really is struggling with. And the last time that the board addressed the enrollment issues between the two elementary schools, Mastway was the school that had the most students. They made busing adjustments over 10 years ago, and over that time period, enrollment has shifted based on where homes are selling, who's buying the homes, and so forth. And it just happens that at this time in the life of the district, Durham and Madbury are in a growth situation in terms of student enrollment. And so this is an issue that really can't go into another school year. As much as it is difficult for any school board to make a decision around this issue, it's now at a point where we have a very de-equalized and inequitable situation. So this slide is based on the long-range planning committee projected enrollment, and you can see that I updated the 2013-14 numbers so that it reflects the actual enrollment as of October 1st, which is 699 students. But if you go out to 2022-23, that total enrollment drops substantially to right around 500. So I will really want to reiterate people like Jocelyn, who talked about the two schools, and others who stood up and said, you know, these are really great elementary schools. This isn't a Boston where we're trying to reshuffle kids because we're trying to create equality through busing. This is really about two great schools, one school being under-enrolled and the other school being over-enrolled. You know, this room is full because you all care about your elementary schools. We care about your elementary schools. And so having this discussion, as tough as it is an important discussion. I was talking to the city manager in Durham today, and I said having this discussion is like having the homes revalued in your town. Nobody likes to do it. Needless to say, the board doesn't like to do it. I don't like to do it. It's tough work because you bring out so much strong emotion. But both schools are very loved. They're loved by their teachers. They're loved by their parents. They're loved by their towns. So the idea of one of the towns not having an elementary school in our cooperative is a little concerning to me because the cooperative is a 3-town cooperative, and we really do have two great elementary schools, a great middle school and a high school, and it does work for us. But here's the situation we're facing, and I tried to give you some examples. I was informed today by a staff member that although the physical education times are not the same at both schools, it wasn't the enrollment that caused it, it was the rotation that the principal at Mohermet created for specials. But nonetheless, if the enrollment was equal, I would be sitting with the principal saying, I want parity in physical education between these two schools. This is a national issue, and the more activity our students have, the more healthy they can be, and getting out of classrooms and running around and playing like kids like to do is as important as some of the content that we provide them. And so physical activity is critically important. The situation in over-enrollment at Mohermet means that Mohermet students are getting phys ed once a week. Sometimes the Mohermet students are having phys ed at the same time lunch is going on. It's really not a conducive environment for really great programming. Now, I would say that the teacher and the principal have made the best of a very tough situation. But running 407 kids through phys ed versus 292 kids through phys ed, it means that the Massway students are getting a lot more direct instruction from our physical education instructor. The other piece is that it puts our physical education instructor at Mohermet in an impossible situation that she can't teach kids during the same time that the phys ed teacher at Massway can. Some of you volunteer at the schools, many of you volunteer at the schools. If you've gone to the lunchrooms at both schools, and I did it concurrently this year just to see the sense of how it feels, we get into a situation at Mohermet where they eat lunch in one continuous 75-minute block. So the first group of students arrive, and then by the time they've gone through lunch, there's no stopping. That group of kids gets done eating, they go out to the playground, but there's a continuous line in the Mohermet school because of enrollment. Conversely, when you're at Massway, that school has the luxury of having its own lunchroom and being able to take that same 75 minutes and break it into 3 25-minute blocks. The children at Mohermet are talking as normally as any other child would during the time they're eating lunch, but because they're eating in a cafeteria with concrete walls, the people who are in charge of monitoring the room are constantly in the mode of shushing the kids, which really isn't the way we eat at home. When we're sitting at the table at home, we talk, we converse, we tell jokes, we laugh, we tell stories. But at Mohermet, when that happens, the noise is bouncing right off the concrete blocks, and kids are constantly in rotation. Again, if you followed the way I did the day and went right over to Massway, kids are having the same conversations, talking about you all, talking about their weekends, talking about just normal kid stuff. But the room is set up to be a place for kids to eat. The gym is in another room. And so the 3 25-minute blocks really are pleasant places to be. In special education, you heard from somebody who spoke to the substandard spaces that are being used to instruct students at Mohermet. We are talking about windowless rooms. We're talking about hallways. We're talking about the staff using every space available to them and more to try to do a program that is excellent, as Sarah alluded to, but in a situation that's really untenable for your children. On the other hand, you go into Massway, the children are in spaces that are appropriate and conducive to learning. Safety is always an issue. If you have 407 kids in hallways versus 292 kids in hallways, it's a different experience. You can walk into both of these schools and feel the difference. Now, having said all of this, what's the great equalizer right now? The staff that we have dedicated to making sure that they compensate for all the deficiencies that we currently are experiencing due to overcrowding at Mohermet. And then finally, relatively small issue, but I know it's a thorn in many taxpayers' sides because I've heard about it from the moment I came in. We have portable classroom facilities at Mohermet, and we have empty classrooms at Massway. If we equalize the enrollment, then we could get rid of the portables, which are not that pleasant a place. Again, our teachers make them learning environments, but this was a temporary arrangement. How many years ago, Dennis?
1996.
So the district bought the portable classrooms in 1996 with the idea that they would be gone in 1997. They're still there. And I commend the staff who work out of them because they're doing a fantastic job, but they should be in the building. When you think about your children going to specials like art and music and phys ed, they have to stop and put on boots and coats and hats and mittens. That's time away from being in art, phys ed, music, and the specials. It's also time the teacher has to take away from instruction in math, science, English, social studies. So that's what this is about. It's about all of us caring very, very much about what's happening with your children and our students. So the option that has definitely the most favor is the option that we would take the bus routes and realign them. So in one comment, it was, why are we still talking about this? We're talking about this because we live in a democratic society where we treasure ideas. It doesn't mean that one idea is going to pass over the other one. It means we should have the kind of dialogue we're having this evening, we had in May, and we had last March, This is the third time this body and this superintendent have talked about this issue. And as you can see, there's lots and lots of feelings about what's right, what's wrong. It really is about making sure that we make the best decision possible for your children. So in this arrangement, you'll see later, what I do is I take 3 neighborhoods and I redirect those students to Mastway. Both schools would remain K through 4 schools. All the traditions thereof that have been established in Mohermet and Mastway. The busing changes are very specific to certain neighborhoods. Only certain students and parents are impacted, not the whole district. Here's the rub. The school board hasn't made the kind of comprehensive review of the enrollment patterns in the district for the better part of a decade. It really should be done every 5 years, because the disparity could have been addressed earlier, but this board has inherited 115 student disparity. And to my credit to them, they're willing to take on this issue in light of all the emotion and all the strong opinions that exist. And quite honestly, it's a hard issue for boards to pick up, because we know in the end, somebody in this room, some child of somebody in this room is going to be impacted by this decision. Essentially what you do is you redefine your bus routes, and the goal would be to keep the bus ride to no more than 40 minutes, which is our maximum level of maximum minutes that we try to adhere to. Of course, wintertime and the beginning of school do have an impact on that, but overall our bus rides at the most for the elementary students are 40 minutes. So here's the current boundaries. This is the way it is right now. So whatever school you are going to, with few exceptions, you can see the pink is the Mohermet school and the green is the Mastway school. Here are the sections of our cooperative, our neighborhoods, if you will, that would be impacted by the change in bus routes. So it would be Route 4 to the Barrington Town Line, to the Madbury Road, Route 125, the Pinecrest Estates, Cedarbrook Estates, Pinkham Road, and Old Mill Road. The next area that would be impacted would be the Mill Road, the Hemlock Way, Foss Farm Drive, Orchard Drive, Ryan Way, Stevens Way, Burnham Avenue, Mohermet Way, Bartlett Road, Fog Lane, Fog Drive, Reserve Road, and Woodridge Road. And the last section would be the Long Marsh Road, Route 108 end, the F. Frost Drive, number 15 through 41, the Cuts Road, the Timberbrook Lane, and Sandy Brook Drive. The number of students that would be impacted are 66. We're estimating that 10 of those would be kindergarten students, 16 would be first grade students, 16 would be second grade students, 13 would be third grade students, and 11 fourth grade students. This is what the map would look like that's proposed. So it would be just north of the Rotary in Lee, just on the other side of 108, down by Newmarket, and then there was a big section of Durham that didn't have that many kids, but geographically should end up with Mastway. So that's the proposed new boundaries. If we do this, and the numbers are relatively close, then we would end up with approximately 346 students at Mastway, and Mohermet would end up with about 350 students. One of the things that came up when we talked about this in March was that the public asked us to look at the number of students impacted because they felt it wasn't enough. And I can't remember who said that in March, but they were right. We needed to add another neighborhood in order to get it to balance. So option 2 is least favored by staff, least favored by the community based on the emails I have and the comments we've heard tonight. But here's why I am proposing it. One, it's an alternative. I don't think that as a superintendent I should be giving the board one choice. In that case, I wouldn't need the board because I would have already made the decision. So what's an alternative to rerouting buses? And that's reconfiguring the schools. K through 2 school in a 3 through 4 school, and you notice that the 5 is in parentheses. That's because the 5th grade isn't necessarily part of the initial change in configuration, because we don't have enough room to bring the 5th grade into the elementary schools until those primary grades make their way up to the elementary schools, so you're talking 5 or 6 years. So anybody who's here tonight who's worried about the 5th grade moving in the fall, that won't happen. There's no room for the 5th grade at the elementary schools. So we're really talking about K2 and 3, 4. It gives us a stronger focus on early childhood education, and it puts all of our kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade teachers together, allows us to coordinate programs better, and provide opportunity to balance student loads. So the example I would use currently in grade 2 at Moheramet, we have 22 students in each of the 2nd grades. At Massway, we have 17 in 2 of them and 16 in the 3rd one. If all of those 2nd grades were happening in the same school, the class load for every 2nd grade would be 19 for each 2nd grade, not 22 and 17. So it gives us a chance to equalize student loads without adding teachers nor eliminating teachers. 19 is a good size classroom for 2nd grade. It allows us more flexibility for class placement. You know, sometimes a child and an adult don't get along. The more options we have, the more opportunity we have to place a child in the right 2nd grade. Some kids are very concrete, sequential, and they need all kinds of firmness, if you will. Other students are much more creative, and if you put that creative personality into a structured classroom, they wouldn't be as successful as they were in a school, in a classroom where the teacher was more akin to that type of teaching. Now, right now we have choice within one school and choice within the other school. But if all of them were together, it would add that element to the classroom placement. Eliminates the modular, and I should say, in truth, it would eliminate the modular in the bus route as well. So it should show up in both of them. And it creates a more collaborative atmosphere among grade levels. So those are some of the issues that I think work in favor of a new model. Both of them are small schools. You know, somebody was talking about small school research. These would still be small schools. So we're not looking at making one of the schools big and another school small like we currently have. It allows for grade-specific sharing. You know, right now we buy lots of materials, and if we were set up so that our grades were in the same location, we could do what the middle school does, we could do what the high school does, and take advantage of purchasing things without duplicating them. It gives us an opportunity to accelerate learning. So here's the issue that I see. Again, K4 is fine in our district, it works. The grade model that we use was developed in an industrial age and was modeled after factories. It was modeled after factories. So all the 8-year-old bottles are in the same part of the box, and all the 9-year-old bottles are in the same part of the box, and they go down the conveyor belt. That's not where we are today. The industrial model is long over, and we're trying to provide an environment that reflects today's needs and ability to individualize education. If we have our primary school kids together and our upper elementary school kids together, it provides that opportunity to accelerate learning along the line that the student is ready for. If I had my dream, if I were going to copy Jocelyn, I would get rid of grades because they represent nothing except a structure by which we put kids through. There's no magic to them. There's no research to them. They were designed strictly as an organizational model. And we have some pretty amazing students in this district, as well as staff. We do extremely well because we have great staff. We do extremely well because we have your children. The raw material you send us is pretty incredible, and our staff is wise enough and smart enough to build off of the work you did before they get here. And in terms of developmental piece, my friend Sarah, I heard her loud and clear, and I actually think that the developmental model that's proposed by putting like age groups together is a very productive and supported model. It allows us to use our special education services more wisely. Right now, special ed is duplicated in both buildings, and we're replicating programs. If we had primary school and an upper elementary school, we could target our special ed resources more strategically. Music in our district is all over the place at the elementary level. We have 2 great music teachers. They're bouncing between the 2 buildings all day long, all week long, because at the upper elementary, we're having the opportunity for kids to take band and chorus. At the lower elementary, we don't. But in order to offer those, we have to move the music teachers. So it would make more sense for the music program. It also opens up the opportunity for the upper elementary for strings or world language. It diminishes the competition between the 2 schools, and I was really glad that one of the alumni who went here actually addressed this. Both schools are great. I would put my child in either school, and in fact, when I was looking for a house, my daughter and her son and husband moved in. We bought a house together in Madbury. The first school I was going to go to was Lee, but the house deal fell through, and I ended up in Madbury. I would have loved Landon to be in either school. They're really terrific schools. And then another observation made in the public presentation was the children would know each other from kindergarten. You know, this idea of the transition into 5th grade is a big deal, and one of the parents alluded to that. It certainly is. You know, it's very nerve-wracking to be 11 or 12 years old, leaving that very pleasant, loving environment and going off into the big middle school. Well, you learn pretty quick. Middle school is a nice place too, but that change is very unnerving. So I think that's worth noting one more time. So I didn't want to put this out there. It's a new idea, and you all think that I'm a Pollyanna and I look through life with rose-colored glasses. I actually recognize there are some shortcomings. One of them alluded to in the teacher letters, and that is older children do mentor younger children. It's a really great model. And if you've ever seen it done, it makes your heart kind of glow. It is a change, and we all know how change feels. But one of the things that I would say is that change can happen to us, or we can take charge of change. Change is going to happen. I believe that was one of the public statements as well. So, you know, what is it that we really want for our school system? I mean, I hear loud and clear that, you know, redirect the bus routes, but I think it's really important to have another option on the table. There is the possibility of split families, you know, and I heard that from one of the public comments as well. For sure, there's split families right now between the elementary and the middle school and the high school. I mean, we have families who have children in all 3 units. It would require additional buses. If our goal is to keep the bus routes to 40 minutes at the most, we'd have to put on 2 additional buses. And it would require a commitment to the new configuration by our teaching staffs. And I don't say that's necessarily a negative, because I think that if a decision was made, they'd rise to it, but I know that it falls under the issue of change. So I tried to put some numbers to this. My friend Al on the board said, slap some numbers to this, Jim. I need to see numbers. So we say that in the first year, if this was approved by the board, which would be in the fall of 2014, all the kindergarten students in the district would go to Mastway. There would be no kindergarten students at Moheramet. Now, I really want to stop here for a second and point out that one change means that buses would not have to be reorganized by neighborhoods, That one change of putting all the kindergarten kids at Mass Way balances the schools. I want that to resonate for a second. It doesn't take all of the change to happen, just that one change. And we wouldn't be worrying about grandfathering 3 neighborhoods. We wouldn't be worried about changing K through 4. One school would be K through 4, the other school would be 1 through 4. So you still have a cycle of years to build that community. So that one change gets us there. But if we're going to go through this, then the following year, 2015, the second year, we'd have 328 students at Massway and 343 students at Moherriman. Not equal, but remember the goal is equity, not necessarily equal. I mean, the first one was really kind of cool because it came out almost equal. The other issue in 2015 that we could do is we could then expand the PEP program. Right now, the PEP program's at the high school. I would recommend in this model bringing the PEP program into the primary school, largely because it gives us the opportunity to expand it. And then all the grade 1 students in the second year, that kindergarten group would just move forward into grade 1, and those 2 grades would be there. So one of the discoveries I made, because Al Howland asked me to do these numbers, is that if I move all the second grades, I end up with an enrollment disparity in the third year. And even at that, it does not come close to the equity I was looking for in the third grade. So why is that? Because that primary enrollment that is so low today hasn't worked its way through the system. Once it does, then the numbers would balance. But this gives you a sense of that. So in closing, I just want to say that both of our elementary schools, the enrollment has become so different that the education, safety, and equity of our children are impacted, that the 115 student difference needs board action to align the enrollments. Either model achieves balanced enrollment, so it's not that one is better than the other. Both have advantages and disadvantages, and that's essentially where I would leave this, and I would answer questions of the board.
Thank you. Discussion, questions? Tom?
I have a question about moving the 5th grade in. It would seem to me that both models would have the possibility of moving 5th graders in 6 years down the road, right?
I would say that's true, Tom.
So there's no reason to have the idea of have a 5th grade that it would be equal. I mean, you'd have the equal opportunity to bring the 5th graders in under the 2 models, right?
Yes.
Okay. Also, wouldn't you be able to eliminate the modulars with either model?
Yes, I think I said that. If I didn't, I just want to reiterate it, that I would get rid of the modulars next year, with either decision.
Okay.
Could you speak to the comments about the risk of losing the interns, UNH interns?
Yeah, I actually found that in the letters from the staff disconcerting, because we've had no communication from UNH related to the interns. I asked for documentation related to that yesterday. I didn't get a response, so I called myself today and had a conversation, and that is the opinion, not the position of the university, meaning that the person who's in charge of the program had a conversation with staff, not with me, no communication with me in writing, so that staff have alluded to that conversation in both their letters. I called him directly and asked him why he wasn't communicating directly with me, and he said, well, staff asked him what his opinion was. So what he said to me, and I wrote down the notes so I wouldn't miss it, was, the K2 through 2 model actually would be ideal because they're going to have a K through 2 program, that he wasn't intending to speak for the university, that he wasn't a fan of the 3-4 model and that could impact interns. Those are kind of the conversations we had back and forth. So I think that That official position from the university would come out once the board has made a decision.
Who was it that you spoke with?
Tom Schramm.
Oh, so you spoke with Tom?
I did.
I had a question. One of the things put out there is that this is a very difficult decision to make, and it's not been made for many, many years. I'm new to the board in March, and I think we're trying to address this. As with the strategic plan we're writing, we talk about revisiting it and making sure it's not sitting on a shelf, that we're implementing it, tweaking it as we need to. Is that not something we can formulate too if we choose to redraw a bus line, that we have this automatic review and therefore things don't drag on as maybe they have done to this point?
My recommendation to the board would be to review the enrollment of each of the elementary schools every year with a 5-year, that's a decision-making time. If you revisit it every year and make decisions every year, you're going to drive all the parents crazy in the district. On the other hand, looking at it every single year and then having a cycle, a 5-year cycle of decision-making makes a lot of sense, and people would be able to predict the pattern of the board.
And that was my thought too. I have seen that our decision on this was not to be to a November 20th meeting. I've heard a lot of public comments tonight about people saying this has been going on a long time. There's a lot of anxiety. I'm wondering if we should not try to move that decision up to our meeting next week and try to put this to rest and not let this linger still further.
I just want to address that. I have a lot to say besides, but oops, sorry. Can you hear me now? I think that, you know, I want to give, or I would hope that you guys have an ample opportunity to kind of think through all the nuances of this. To the mom who's up there, who was the 1-minute mom, who was like in the neighborhood. It just so happens I actually live in the neighborhood that's in the bus change as well. I'm old and my kids are moving out of elementary school, so it doesn't really impact me. But I know kids personally who are going to be impacted by this. So I think, you know, you guys need at least a reasonable amount of time to digest this, and hopefully, you know, who knows? Maybe there's something we haven't thought of right now about a better solution to this, or some way to nuance the solution. And by setting a time frame of next week, I think we take away the thoughtful opportunity for you guys to think that through. And I think it's much better. I mean, I know it's taken us a long time. I'm sorry we work really, really, really slow. That's just the nature of the beast. But in this case, this is a decision that we're going to make that's going to have a profound impact upon a lot of kids. And I think that taking a few extra weeks to figure that out is time well spent.
I just have a couple of comments. I went to a memorial service maybe 2 years ago. A young man who was killed in an accident in Oyster River, graduate. And at this service, a young woman stood up and talked at length about her friendship with this young man, because they were all through the school, their 12 years, the Mastway group. And I just think that's sad that we don't bring our kids up to be the Oyster River kids. They were the Mastway kids even when they got to high school. And that stuck with me. And after my kids graduated from Oyster River, we moved to Kittery, where I spent many years in the school board. But they had the K2 3-4 model, and the staff liked it. It made staff development, especially the critical friends model, very positive, workable, and I never heard a word that parents didn't like it. That's how it was. K2 at one school. I don't know if they still do that, because with shrinking populations, just like here, they had to close one school because Maine mandated consolidation, not just getting tuition, but mandated consolidation, and Kittery was left out because it's sitting in the corner and everybody else consolidated with. So Kittery now has this very small system and very expensive. So I give you those two thoughts. They're in my head. Megan.
I have a number of questions. The option of the redrawing the bus lines, if we were to do that, but do a grandfathering, would, grandfathering families, what would those numbers look like?
I'm gonna go back in the slide because
Okay.
they are.
I just want to make sure I'm
we
clear
spelled
on
them
that.
out in there. So this slide shows you what grade levels are impacted and how many students are impacted.
Okay.
And so, if you grandfathered everyone, you'd be 66 students and nobody moves. And I don't say that in jest, and I'm not being sarcastic, because in previous boards, grandfathering occurred and it was literally multi-generational. And so families that in one area where everybody else had gone to whatever school the kids were assigned to still has in that community there's still a child left who's going to the other school because they were grandfathered. So grandfathering is an option for the board to consider. As you think about that, I'd be thinking about how far back you want to grandfather. That's something for you all to consider. Those are the numbers that are impacted, number of students.
Okay, so on the topic of grandfathering, if we were to do any level of grandfathering, would we be able to eliminate the modulars?
Depends on how many grades you grandfather. If you, say everybody who's already started stays where they are, it'll take you 5 years to balance the loads between the two schools. I mean, that's the extreme end of things. If you grandfather just 4th grade, you might have to hang on to the modular for a year.
Okay.
And I haven't analyzed that, so I'm just using those as extreme examples,
Okay.
Megan.
There was some discussion, and we received letters about buses, and you point out that we would have to purchase 2 more buses to support the K-2 model. What are the cost differentials of the 2 models? Is it a wash, or is it, because I recognize that there's going to be some scale economy savings supposedly putting in all the grades together, but I don't have a clear sense about.
And quite honestly, we haven't done that level of detail. We know the 2 buses would be new, but the efficiencies that the special ed department could generate because we wouldn't have to duplicate services could wipe out that cost. So I could do a cost benefit analysis for the board as best I can based on really rough numbers and have that as part of your consideration.
Okay. The other question is, you show doing, for the K-2, you have a rollout. Is that your recommendation? Could we, if we were to do that model, could it be done flash cut? I don't know what you want to call it.
Overnight, you mean?
Yeah.
No, of course you could do it that way, but it isn't necessary to do it that way. I think that the rollout that I've shown is trying to be sensitive to families. You can do anything overnight, but I think you'd have a lot of pushback more than tonight if we get insensitive about what we're trying to do. This is a big deal for families, whether the buses are being rerouted. We're going to have 46 families who most likely will be at future board meetings, you know, talking about the very issues that you're talking about, Megan. And so I'm not convinced that it's an all or nothing kind of do it tomorrow. I think we have time in terms of the K2 through 4 model. In terms of the bus routes, it's really a decision of this body in terms of grandfathering.
Okay, I have more questions. What other area schools do we know that have implemented K through 2 in the Seacoast area?
Sure,
or
well,
locally in New Hampshire?
I'm going to turn to Carolyn because I can't remember off the top of my head. Is it Hollis? Exeter? Elliott? Hampton and Newburyport. So those would be 4. That's the Brain Trust over there. Hudson. So several districts have made the move.
Okay, my other, I guess one thing that stands out to me in your presentation, there appears to be, at least on paper, a lot of academic merit to the K through 2, 3 through 4 model that was presented. But, you know, things on paper are one thing and how they're implemented is another factor. Can you talk about the implementation? And my great concern is that we have 2 letters from the 2 elementary school staff expressing strong sentiment towards the current model. You know, I'm concerned about that.
Sure, and I think that I would as well. I mean, you have 2 great staffs, and both staffs now have expressed in writing that they have a preference for one model over the other as read into the public record. I think that they have keen observations about the district from the teacher level. I think teachers generally really have a strong sense of their students. I think when it comes to issues of district issues, they are living in the paradigm that has existed. And so like Maria alluded to, if they had been living in a K2, 3, 4 paradigm, we'd probably get similar resistance to going to a K through 4. So, you know, in my mind, as the district administrator, I think either model can be successful. The model we have to remember, is successful. So it's not that we're trying to break up a bad school and a good school. We have 2 good schools. That's what makes the decision tougher for the school board, quite honestly. If I was still in Portland, we have very disparate populations in each of the elementary schools, and there were 8 of them. We don't have that disparity here. It's a mild disparity. But we do have a sense of competition in between the 2 schools that was alluded to.
My last question is a little bit tough. I'd like to know your leadership team, what models they recommend and support.
Well, that's a fair question. They did tell me, but at that point I said I wouldn't share it, so I'm just going to look for heads. Is it okay for me to share what we talked about at the administrative team? I'll do it. It's okay, Dan, you don't have to get out. Is it okay to share it? Okay. Unanimously, the administrative team was supportive of the K2, 3, 4 model. And I started at the high school and went roundtable. So every administrator had a chance to say which model they preferred.
Was there any specific reasoning that could be shared?
It's in the PowerPoint. You know, from
Okay.
Carolyn's perspective, it's about professional development. From Catherine's, it's about equity of services. So, you know, that's where they were coming from.
Well, thank you. This is a very difficult decision.
A more mundane question.
I'm ready for mundane.
Okay, to get back to bus routes. You mentioned one of the advantages of keeping the community schools, keeping the K4, would be you could maintain the 40-minute bus ride, you know, the limit. By implication, do you mean that if you went to the reconfigured schools, that you'd have some bus routes that would be longer than 40 minutes?
No, because we would recommend that we add 2 bus routes in that model. So we would still be shooting for no longer than 40 minutes at the elementary school, but we would achieve it by adding 2 additional routes.
Okay.
I actually want to talk about that competitive. Can you hear me? The competitive, because that's come up now again and again, the competition between the 2 schools. And I think I've spent about a year and a half trying to look into that. It was like, I remember Dennis said to me, you're never going to fully understand the other school because your kids don't go there. But let me tell you, I'm a lot more stubborn than that. So I went there with the ABC, and I looked at all the facilities, including the boiler, the old incinerator. I've gone to, like, you know, a tour with when Chris Gallo was still the principal, went around the school, and I went to, like, the parent night at Mastway, and and actually, you know, I was even on the team that interviewed and hired the principal that is now the Mastway principal. And it gave me a really good opportunity to talk to parents on the PTO, to teachers there, and you know, every time I bring this topic up, I seem to step in mud, so I'm going to try to not be offensive. What I finally have come to the conclusion is that, you know what, competition is not in itself a bad thing. In some ways, you know, it's stimulating to have some competition. We just have never actually been able to harness it in what is a really useful way. So instead of worrying about, I don't know, things like the playground and these kind of things, I mean, it would be great to have both schools have some focus where they're working on some common problem that they are competing against each other. And I mean, we have the framework is already in place. We've donated a substantial amount of money, or we've allocated a substantial amount of money to the green team sitting there. So we have 2 people there that are sitting there working on this. And I mean, it seems obvious to me in like 2014, it would be like the Eco Challenge or something like that. Mohammed versus Mastway. You know, we come up with some solution. And the reason I say that, I think it's a good lesson for students that there is no one necessarily right solution to every problem. It's, you know, we need to learn to embrace diversity and diversity in thought. And if you take K through 2, 3 through 4, you lose that. I mean, yes, you could have a competition between K through 2 and 3 through 4, but I mean, it's really not a fair competition. You know, it's kind of like, sorry guys, we're gonna blow you away with this school. So I think that's my perception. I mean, we have 2 phenomenal schools. And I mean, I seem like I spent about 1 billion years at Mohammed, but Mastway is equally as good. We just have never been able to harness that. And it's, as I marched out across the driveway like the Grim Reaper to one of the families who's one of the 46 that faces that tough thing, one of the things that she said was, you know, I don't know anything about Mastway. And I've heard also about, like, oh, you know, this persists into the middle school. And I remember a vivid conversation between my daughter and her friend who went to Mastway talking about what an incredibly stupid thing that was. They realized that by middle school that it's a meaningless thing. We are missing an opportunity to use what is a really great system and improve it without blowing it up, in my opinion. So I think that there's a simpler solution to this, but it still doesn't solve the conundrum of the 46 families. And, you know, I'm really, really, really sorry that we did not take action and it's come to this. But at this point, we have to make a decision. When you have special education students in substandard facilities, we have to make a decision. And it's unfortunate that one of the models impacts a group of people. Again, I can't think of a perfect way to solve that. And I think long ago when I talked about that, and I said there's no perfect solution to this, that's what I mean. You're going to have a strong group of families that want to keep their kids together. So those 46 families you face, you're like in the worst possible position. It's like we're asking you, if you take this other model for the betterment of our community, to accept this model which you would want. Unfortunately, you're having to fall on the sword to have it go. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you.
I'd like to echo what you said, Al. I guess one thing about the schools, and you brought up the idea of competition, I think to look at it another way too is what we've heard is there's so much identity with these schools, which I think is a tremendous value for children, families, and community. And I think if we have the time that children spend at that school, those schools are going to lose that soul, which we talk about education, and in your presentation, Dr. Morse, where you list some of the benefits of the split model, I think there are a lot of benefits not listed in the current K-4 model that we could list there, which is that kind of comfort level that staff get with children, children get with staff, and the advanced learning, I think, that comes through that. So I could see that if we went to a K-2, we would wind up with these environments that maybe we'll have cutting edge teaching as far as consolidating all resources in one school, but I think we're missing the whole child is what we're missing. And when you made the point about a child at the grade level, and I understand with the grades how, right, that is something that's come from factory age, but we're talking so much more about the education level of that child in the grade, but we're talking about the developmental level and the social level. And I've witnessed through my practice families who, because their children were advanced educationally, advanced them through the year in school, they wound up doing well educationally, socially, they never adapted. And I think that's a very important piece that we would lose if we move away from our current model.
Anne?
Dr. Morse, thank you for this. Thank you for this presentation. I recognize it was a lot of work at a time where you're putting together the budget for next year. You're working out our tuition agreements with local communities. You're rolling out Common Core at a rate probably faster than most of our community schools in the area. Thank you, Carolyn, for your work. I'm moved by your diligence. I'm sure no one here in this room knows that Dr. Morse was offered a job to take over the Board of Education in Maine. I'm grateful he's still here. What I would like to hear from you, Dr. Morse, is evidence that the model we currently follow in a superior way allows our staff to deliver instruction. Every board member at this table has an ethical responsibility to spend every single tax dollar that you send in delivering instruction in the absolute best way possible. I want to know, does one demonstrably offer instruction in a superior way? And until I understand that, it's very difficult for me to make a decision, because that's my job as a board member, to assure my tax-paying citizens and the parents of the district that we are spending money educating your kids in the most superior way possible. I'm as emotional about that as all of you are. I had 3 children that went through the district. They went to multiple schools. My daughter spent 2 years in the modular. It wasn't pleasant, but she put a face on every day, and I did too. So if you could provide us with that evidence, Dr. Morse, I would really appreciate it. That what do we get if we change the model? How do we, in a more superior way, deliver instruction to our children?
There absolutely is no research that supports the current model or the proposed model. So to make a judgment call as to one is more superior than the other, when Kenny was making his comments, as he alluded to, I could have added more to the grade level model, the K-4 model. I could have added more to the, K-2, 3, 4 model. My opinion is, and it's not research validated, it's my opinion, that in our school district, in Oyster River, we're getting a superlative education in the K-4 model. When you talk about change, what you're looking for is opportunity to do some things differently. And that's when I talked about the idea of resource allocation, the special ed program, being able to specialize at a primary and upper elementary level, equalizing enrollment. We can't do those things in the current model. The proposed model opens up opportunity to do things different. It doesn't guarantee things will be done differently. You know, again, we're not starting from two schools where one is inferior and the other is superior. They're both really good schools. We're starting from a point of a conversation about, is there a more effective or efficient way of delivering elementary education? And that's why I put this proposal out, because I see as superintendent so many redundancies because we have two elementary schools. We don't have those redundancies in the middle school or high school because there's only one each. And short of shutting down an elementary school, which I certainly wouldn't be recommending, or adding enough classrooms to one in order to expand it, this seems a logical approach to me, that we would be able to advantage ourselves in different ways. But in saying that, I'm taking nothing away from the work that we're doing today in the K through 4 models.
Further discussion? Thank you. Moving on to superintendent actions. Board actions, we need to, we have before us.
I'd ask the board to approve the middle school and high school coaches presented in your packet.
Anybody? Kenny?
I make a motion to approve the Oyster River Middle School and Oyster River High School coaches and volunteers as listed below.
Seconded by Ed. Discussion? Hearing none, could we have a show of hands, please? 7 in the affirmative, Ryan in the affirmative, motion passes. School board committee updates. Tom?
I'm not sure this is the appropriate time, but there's been a vacancy in the long-range planning committee for almost a year, and Robert Moore, who I believe is a resident of Lee, he's a professor of economics at the Paul School at UNH, has indicated an interest in serving on that board. So I'm not sure exactly the process, whether I could just make a motion to have him, to accept him as a member of the committee, or...
What I would suggest, Tom, is that we send the candidate's name to the long-range planning committee and let them come back with their support, rather than going directly to a nominee.
Okay.
Just so they have a chance to be able to say
well,
they support.
This is coming from Lisa Alice.
Oh, it is?
Yeah,
Okay.
so I mean, he's actually, and you know, he understood grade progression ratios instantly, so, which it took me about a year to get. So I think he'll be an excellent member. You know, he's actually been sitting in on a couple meetings, and this is coming from Lisa Alice, and so this is okay.
Yes.
So do we need to vote on that? Do I need to move that, or did we just?
I think that we have in the past nominated, because that's a school board committee, so I think it takes a nomination and second a vote.
Okay, I move to appoint Robert Moore, M-O-H-R, as a member of the Long Range Planning Committee.
Seconded by Al. Discussion? I think it's wonderful that somebody's stepping forward.
Yep, he's good too.
So how many members does that bring the board to now, with the committee to?
I don't have the exact number, but I know that we're full, we've had one vacancy, and this brings us to full allotment. 9? That sounds right.
Further discussion? Could we have a show of hands, please? 7 in the affirmative, Brian in the affirmative, motion passes. And that, unless there are some other committees, then we're back to public comment. And should we give it? How many would like to speak again? We'll give it 20 minutes.
Hi, my name's Lauren Selig. I live here in Durham, and for the 2 or 3 of you who don't know this, my husband is Todd, who sends out Friday updates to most of you every week. And so a couple things. One is, I don't know which is the best plan. I really don't. I don't envy your positions. I know that no matter what decision is made, people are going to be really unhappy. What I would say, Al, you mentioned needing another alternative. If you do go to the K2/3-4 model, I would offer as an idea that maybe for next year that there be one kindergarten maintained at Mohammed for the siblings of kids who are already there, so that situations with families who are going to have children in K, would perhaps next year have children in K2 and 4 or some configuration, don't end up with one child at Mast Way and the other 2 at Mohammed for that year. So that would be an exclusively for siblings kindergarten classroom as another alternative. In terms of how you structure the buses and everything else, again, there's really not easy answers here, and I wish that I had a magic wand and could make it easy for all of us. I will say, speaking professionally as a real estate agent, people who move into the Oyster River school system move here for the schools, not for a school in particular. I would have gladly had my children go to either. I'm delighted that they've gone to Mohammed because we've gotten a wonderful community there, but I also know many, many people at Mast Way. This rivalry and tension, in my opinion, has to do more with people's snobbery than anything else, and I wish they would put it aside, much as we would keep the tuition discussion focused on the needs of our high school students and not based on people's socioeconomic status or based on perceived good people and bad people. Because having worked in the Maryland school systems, which were countywide school systems, with children who are incredibly underprivileged, I will tell you those kids work far harder than most of the privileged kids that I ever met. And so I really hope we can take that out of the conversation. And the last thing that I'll say is I really want to echo Krista's point earlier. I know it's a hard decision, but it's a decision that has to get made, and it has to get made now. We cannot continue to put this decision off. The anxiety of children is surfacing. My first grader has said to me, "Mommy, am I going to go to the same school next year? What's going to happen? Where are my friends going to be?" We need her to have a stable first grade year so that she can grow and flourish in the best way possible. And the uncertainty that's hanging over the teachers and hanging over the parents is affecting the children in our community. Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Daniel Day. I am a 2009 graduate of Oyster River and current resident of Durham, New Hampshire. I just recently graduated from the University of New Hampshire, attended the Oyster River school system, K through 12, went through the whole system, and was a proud graduate of Mohammed Elementary School. I gotta say, I am a strong supporter of keeping the K through 4 system that we currently have now. It's our schools being some of the best schools in the state, especially at the elementary school. By splitting the two. However, at least how it's been up until recently, I don't know how it is now, it has been a separate teacher who's done band versus chorus, and also there still, to my knowledge, is a classroom music program for grades 3 and 4 as well. There was also some talk about windowless special education rooms at Mohammed. I gotta say, here in this brand new high school, last time I checked, there were 2 windowless special ed rooms here as well, and brand new school. And one of them was actually moved out, to my knowledge, to make way for the preschool program here. So I recommend, if you're freeing up some space over in an elementary school, potentially moving that program back to the elementary schools, because that might allow for that classroom to move back to a windowless room. Not that, in my opinion, as a student, that it really mattered that much. I want to say the Oyster River Mast Way rivalry definitely exists, but I'd say it's a very good rivalry, very healthy one, similar to 2 really good sports teams. Not that the elementary schools really have sports teams, but they're 2 really good schools. In my time at Mohammed, while I was there, I never thought there could be any school any better than what I was at. It was a great school, had some very unique programs. I never went to Mastway, but I'm sure students there think the same thing about their school, and that just shows the awesome dedication that the community has and the great teachers that those schools have. They're different schools. Meharmet has a maple sugaring program. Mastway, I'm sure, has something equally as special, but as a college graduate, I still get into heated debates with my buddies about who went to the better elementary school, but there really is nothing we have against each other. It's just fun, friendly conversation. I definitely think that's very important to point out, and it promotes some sort of school spirit. I would also recommend grandfathering in students currently at those schools, because transitions between schools is very difficult for a student, and it interrupts their educational flow. And even though there would be some of that going on, I definitely think that it would think long term. It might take longer time to resolve some of these issues, but thinking long term is better. Please don't take the easy way out. Think in terms of individual students and not statistics. Thank you very much.
Hi, Vincent O'Hara, 67 Bucks Hill Road. Just wanted to echo the sentiment of, I think, a couple of board members. They were asking about the cost, sort of a cost-benefit analysis, and what maybe the ROI might be in doing one versus the other. From a taxpayer perspective, I'm also interested in, obviously, from the taxpayer perspective, in that what will $1 bring in return. I have a 2-year-old that so still a few years off, but definitely interested to knowing, because as I think somebody else said, one of the reasons I came to Durham was for the schools at large in the school system, understanding that our taxes are, what they are, fairly high comparatively, but understanding that we offer a really good A+ type of education to our children. So I'm very interested in understanding a little more what that, what the cost might be for one solution versus another.
First, thank you for your service, and thank you for holding this forum this evening. I'm speaking for Kevin and Kara Abbott at 42 Huckins Road in Madbury. They've asked that you please consider option 1, the busing route, because they have a son currently, his name is Ross, my buddy. He's in a kindergartner, and if we go with the phase-in option, what will happen is he'll be at Meharmet for a year, then he'll be in Mastway for a year, then he goes back to Meharmet for a year. If you look at how the rollout reads, on the 14-15 year, he would stay at Meharmet school because he'd be then in the first grade. In 15-16, all second graders, when Ross would be a second grader, they go to Mastway. Then in 16-17, when he's a third grader, he goes back to Meharmet. He has an older brother who's in Meharmet right now, and his younger sister is coming behind him 2 years. So when you take these gap kids, like Ross, who's at kindergarten right now, Meharmet, Mast, Meharmet, that's tough. I shouldn't say tough, challenging. Where if you go with option 1, Lance moves on to the middle school, Ross becomes the big brother for his sister Gwen, who starts kindergarten at Meharmet. You have one family going through the same school system. It's the mentoring. We talk about their friends, but equally important is their families. They like to get on the bus together, they like to wait for the bus together. They see each other in the hallways, they wave hi. There's a familiarity that can't be done when you take a little kid from Meharmet to Mast to Meharmet. But, and sorry if I'm wrong, let me know, but no. Exactly, but it's for the Abbott family. But thank you for your time, thank you for your service. It's tough. Thank you.
I missed your name.
My name is Matt Mayberry. Matt Mayberry, kind of like where Andy Nopi live. Thank you.
Did you get that? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Chris Mayer. I just wanted to add one more thinking point. So at the last meeting, we talked about full-day kindergarten, which is going to come at a cost to the town. And I'm concerned that if we choose the higher cost model here, that the full-day kindergarten will come off the table, because there's only so many dollars and so many things that you can do. And my concern is the model with the schools is good now, and it's well respected. So if we, and I don't have a good way to put this, but take a gamble on a higher cost model, when the model we have today works, we're going to lose the full day kindergarten because there's not enough money to do both. So I just want to raise that and add that to your thoughts. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
William Hall, Durham. Just an observation. Every year you get a new teacher. I don't think you talk to your building very much. So the building isn't as important as the kids that you go to school with. So if you have the 3-4 model, then all the kids in the 3rd grade, they won't be split up going one way or changing schools. Whatever they do with their friends, and they all get on the bus together, and they all end up at the same place together. All the 3rd graders do. And that's what's important, is the kids that are in their own grade. I was pretty well oblivious to the grades above and below me in school. It was the kids I went to school with. So I believe that you can dodge the bullet here by going with the split model, and the kids from Mastway, all the 3rd graders just end up with all the 3rd graders at Moormet, and all the 4th graders end up with all the 4th graders, and you don't have any pulling people out of one class somewhere else. They're there with all their buddies from the year before. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Laura Williams. I live at 20 Ambler Way in Durham. What I hear is, I'm hearing very clearly that this unequal enrollment is a problem that needs to be addressed, and I'm not arguing that point at all. And I don't think anybody is arguing to do nothing about this unequal enrollment. However, what I'm more hearing is that, what I'm not hearing, I feel like, is a real in-depth analysis of the pros and cons of redistricting versus changing educational models. What I'm really hearing is more of a push to change the educational models without the more in-depth analysis that I'd like to hear. Less has been said about the redistricting. I think one of the things I am hearing about changing these bus routes is fear from a lot of the families that are going to be affected. Fear about the effect of the transition on their families. I find it a little ironic that this fear of transition is coming up, yet we're considering a proposal where we make all elementary school transition several times. My son, who's in kindergarten now, in Ross's class actually, would actually have to transition several times by the time he gets to 5th grade, if this were to occur. I'm a little bit bothered that any parent would suggest that they know what's best for my son in particular, who's also a child with an IEP, who struggles with transitions. His particular disability puts him at risk for anxiety and low self-esteem when he has to deal with big, strong transitions like this. Putting him in a place with more kids his age makes him more of a small fish in a big pond, which is going to increase his anxiety. I just don't see how this would be a benefit to him. It's going to decrease his quality of relationships both with the staff at his school and with his peers. He doesn't need to know 6 to 8 different kindergarten classes. He'll do just fine with 3 or 4. Contrary to Dr. Morse's presentation, the K through 2nd 3 to 4 model to me feels more cookie cutter, more industrial, more conveyor belt. It takes away the diversity of age and the richness that mentorship can bring for younger children, and the responsibility and empathy and leadership development that can come as an older child in that kind of community. I'm feeling like many of the benefits of the K through 2, 3 to 4 change could also be realized by redrawing these bus lines. Dr. Morse's presentation romanticizes benefits of this model change, I think, without any research, without any specific detail as to how this would actually impact our children. I very much trust both the Mohammed and Massway staff who voiced support for maintaining the K-4 model. A lot of the benefits of the K-2,
3 minutes.
I'm almost done. K-2 and 3-4 model involve consolidation of resources, again, industrial cookie cutter conveyor belt to me. In short, I strongly support dismissing this as an option, especially in light of the history of the richness that Oyster River is known for in terms of student development. That's it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Erin Sharp, and I live in Durham. And I'm a developmentalist, developmental researcher, and I actually study adolescent development. So if we were really doing what was best for the development of children, we know the best model is K-8, 9, 12. I mean, that really would be, if we're thinking about the developmental benefits for kids. But I have written a letter, and I lean more towards arguing against adding additional transitions into our children's educational experience, but I will say I'm keeping an open mind. I want to know that the board has made a very thoughtful and well-informed decision, and I think it's important to know how these choices affect budget and how these choices are going to be implemented. I also think some of the benefits of the K-12 3-4 model with getting teachers doing more together and working more collaboratively. I would hope we could do that as well, even if we decide to just redraw the district lines. If we can, as a district, facilitate teachers of all of the same grades working together, maybe more collaboratively in training. And so, I think we know the most about transitions for adolescents, and introducing a transition when they are going through the process of puberty and a lot of change is very difficult. I think we don't have the evidence as well for younger children, but I think when we're talking about self-esteem, social emotional development, it's good for kids to be really confident with the place that they're in, to develop relationships with staff and teachers that they're going to see on a regular basis, more than just 2 years. And my son, who I think would do well in either environment, has really benefited now as a 4th grader at Mohammed, having a relationship, and he sees himself as a kid that can offer introduction to the school to younger kids, and I think that role for him has been really valuable in his confidence. I think he would lose that if he had to transition, but so I think I'm nervous about adding an additional transition to our kids' education, I think especially for kids who are more vulnerable, but I am keeping an open mind, and I'm hoping that a lot of residents are doing the same, and just hopefully the board uses evidence and can really, once a decision is made, argue why it was the best decision. Thanks.
Thank you.
Diane Moore in Durham. I'm just going through the presentation that was put forward tonight. And on the first slide, it looks like in 3 years the capacity issue will resolve itself. And then there really will just be a difference of 44 kids between the 2 schools. I feel that some of this has come forward, even though I did attend the April meeting that you did have in regards to this. The 25 students that did come in surprisingly to Mohammed today, this year. Then the third slide, I have children at Mastway, so forgive me for not knowing Mohammed very well. But some of the lunch and the education, physical education, I wonder is more of a school design issue than a capacity issue, and I'm curious to hear more about that. Then, in regards to the 2 different models, on a cost perspective, you talked about adding of 2 buses, which would require 2 more bus drivers as well as the buses. If you do the redistricting, my understanding, and from what I understand with Mastway, I have a child in 1st grade, there's 3 1st grade teachers. Looking at the numbers and trying to do a quick crunching of numbers, you're going to have to add a teacher to Mastway. So that's another cost value that's going to have to come in to be considered. I'm not a very good public speaker, so excuse me. In regards to the the bus breakdown, you have 11 for 4th grade. If I looked at the numbers correctly from Harriman, there's 87 children. They go to 5th grade next year. That number's reduced. My current 5th grader, who was at Massway last year in 4th grade, was a class of 86. He did not know anything different than 20 to 21 kids the entire time he was there, which I believe broke the policy 2B into class size issues. With the redistricting issue, if I crunch my numbers right, you're still going to be breaking that policy on the classroom numbers in some of that grade pocket. So when you look into this, please look at the numbers. It's wonderful to hear about individual people and their children and how they're affected, but you need to also look at the numbers of it. Going through the slide some more, trying to look at my notes. In regards to PEP, they just found a home 3 years ago, and now you're going to uproot them again. There was a lot that went in, again, on the cost value to resize to make bathrooms that fit for the kids. They put in a playground. I believe there's a curriculum based around it that the high school students are getting early childhood education experience there as well, so it benefits the high school.
Thank you.
And my last comment is that you have the 3 years projected out here of the back and forth of where kids are going to be going. Again, in 3 years, it looks like the number capacity issue resolves itself.
Thank you.
I won't take anywhere near 3 minutes. First, Dr. Morris, I appreciated the presentation. I thought it was very balanced. I thought you really were trying to show pros and cons of each, and I appreciated that. I think one of the comments that you made that I really took to heart was the fact that you really would be without grades if given the choice. That they're just a number, they're just where we put kids for whatever age they are. And I'm very much in support of that and that education model. I think that one of the issues with K-2 in particular is that when you have students that are in that gray area, either they're not up to the level or they're beyond the level, and they're in that shorter period, there can be periods of time where you can't push kids further up and you can't bring them back. And I think that is an issue with the model and with that fact of you don't have as much time with that student in kindergarten who maybe doesn't make the leap to 1st grade, may need a little more work, or the student who really does well, and you've got a class in Maharamid or at Massway that's a 1-2 or a 3-4, where you may be able to push that student a little bit further, but that you can't do. One of the things that Al said that I really thought was great was the competition idea. And I'm going to get egged for saying this, and so I apologize. One of the things that happens at Maharamid every year is that we do, this big pancake breakfast, with the syrup. And sorry, middle school parents, and I'm a middle school parent. How about we say to the band, don't come at the middle school. And why don't we invite the kids from Massway to come on over and have their parents stay? And why don't we look for more ways to do more cross things between the schools and get the schools together that way rather than changing the whole process around? Thanks.
Love that man. Love that man right there. Just for the record, can you put that in the record? I love that man. I don't know who he is, but I love him. Krista Butsley, I'm no longer sitting behind this table. I am standing here. So now I get to be non-politically correct and just be a parent of 2 Massway students and 1 in the PEP program who thinks he owns this high school, by the way. So I think you should also leave the PEP program here because it builds the kids' self-confidence so much that my son thinks he owns the high school. But anyway, back to what I was going to do is call out the white elephant because I think it's important in your consideration of what to do with the elementary schools. While I appreciate all of the Mohammed parents and former Mohammed students coming up and saying what it's like to be a Massway parent or a Massway student, I am actually a Massway parent. And I actually have Massway students. And Maria has a granddaughter, I think granddaughter, right? Yeah, okay, in Massway. But none of you are Massway parents. And you don't know what it's like to be sitting in a forum, which it didn't happen tonight, but it did happen the last one, and listen to your friends say that your kids go to a bad school. And you don't know, you don't know what it's like to have your child come home from school and say that they heard from a Mohammed student or whoever else they heard it from that they didn't get as good of an education as your student. My kid gets a fabulous education at Massway. The Mohammed students get a fabulous education at Mohammed. But there are people in this district who think that one school is better than the other. And while that may be viewed as competition for some, it's not for me. So I've been working with a group of Mohammed parents and Massway parents this summer to come up, brainstorm ideas to combine the two schools in a community events, both school-wide and family-wide. And you'll be receiving an email because now it's timely, and we've been waiting to send it till an appropriate time, to have a meeting with the PTOs from both schools, the principals from both schools, and the superintendent to try to have more cohesive groups of both co-curricular and co-family events throughout the school year to combine the elementary schools. And I highly recommend that if you decide to do redistricting rather than K through 2 and 3 through 4/5 model, that some of these events take place. Because I think it's important for the kids to be invited to each other's schools, to participate in the communities, still allowing each school to have their identity. I'm not trying to steal the identity from either elementary school. I don't want to be in Mohammed, with all due respect. I like Massway. My kids like Massway. They're getting a great education. And I don't have to go to Mohammed because I don't think Mohammed kids are getting a better education than my kids at Massway. So I've said what I need to say. People can start throwing stones, but I'm happy.
I'm Kristen Eckhart, and I'm a parent of a first grader at Mohammed, and I'm a resident of Durham. I'm also a public school teacher. I teach 4th grade at Epping Elementary School. I am respectfully struggling to find the academic merit in option 2. I believe that the unified arts are important. I wish that children had more time to exercise in the school day, but I just agree with the point that I believe that's a school configuration issue, and music is important, but as a teacher implementing Common Core, we also, what I don't see here is, the math and language arts and the subject areas that I think we would all agree are so essential to our students' future success, and I'm struggling to see how option 2 would have more academic merit than option 1. And Dr. Morse, you spoke about what your dream school would be, and as a parent and as a teacher who's taught in private day schools and underserved public schools in Harlem and now here in New Hampshire, I think that Oyster River is about as close as you can get to dream schools, and I would be sad if the multi-age option, which is now available because of the K through 4 configuration, is no longer an option due to the longitudinal constraints of just K2 and then 3-4, because I know that many students in both schools have benefited from looping and multi-age, and that would really just disappear.
Thank you. We have used up our 20 minutes plus, so I'll give you each 2 minutes, and then that's it.
Hi, I'm Christine Rinko from Edbury. I'd just like some clarification on the split, because I have a kindergartner in Mohammed this year, and 2 people have gotten up and said that they read it as they would have a kindergartner there this year and then move back and forth Massway to Mohammed. The way I read it is that she wouldn't have to transition at all, because by the time she's in 2nd grade, it stays, she would stay at Mohammed. And then 3rd grade and 4th grade, she would stay there as well. Is that true? Am I reading it incorrectly, or?
Normally, we listen to public
Okay.
comment, and I'm looking for the chair's acknowledgement that I can respond. That is the intent. I wouldn't challenge the gentleman who came up because I don't have the specific circumstance, but the intent is that they would stay.
Okay. And my question on year 3 is, if those kindergartners that are there this year wouldn't be impacted by that year, why would you not move grade 2 to Massway at that point and then move the 5th grade down to Mohammed?
It really boils down to a space issue. The upper elementary grades are far larger than the entering grades, so it takes a while for the entering grades to move through the cycles so that all 5 elementary grades are relatively the same size. They're all coming in at the primary level in the range of about 100 to 111. And if you look at the upper elementary, it can be as high as 148. So it's an issue of space. And the issue of the 5th grade, which can happen with either model, is also an issue of space. If the numbers materialize so the elementaries get as small as they're projected to get, then the 5th grade movement should be a conversation the board has.
Thank you.
And did I have somebody over here? Okay. Then, thank you all for your comments. And we'll go to closing actions. The next meeting will be next week. And then the 6th of November and on the 20th of November.